This all happened before COVID-19. I think it was 2016, maybe. Started working at the arcade some years before it all happened. I had a run-in with the manager and all that. When I got hired, however, the manager made us all, the new employees of the arcade, memorize some specific rules. These were unusual since we were working in an arcade with things like Pac-Man and Frogger and Donkey Kong, but you get the idea. Rule 1. If a new arcade game shows up either by the name of No Heart, No Soul, or with an EXE at the end of the title, do not play it, or ever let a patron play it at any cost. This was the one rule that I almost broke. When I had to memorize the rules, my first thought was, that's the most ridiculous set of rules I've ever seen. After what has gone on, how could I not think they were serious? Originally, rule number 1 just had with EXE on the end of the title, but the part about No Heart, No Soul was added after the death of a 10-year-old non-binary kid named Gabrielle Myers and a 14-year-old girl named Natalie Schmaltz. It happened as a result of playing the game. According to the account of the manager, a former employee named Thomas Ferrari allowed the games to be played. The kids played the game, it displayed a creepy message, and it added a creepy character with the player's name, which was uncanny to say the least, since the arcade game shouldn't even have the player's name already if it isn't entered. Both kids had talked to a character in-game that looks like a mixture between a female pirate and a biker punk. They then had to complete a strange, difficult challenge. They couldn't complete them, resulting in the screen showing a message saying, "Game over, may the next victim play." Both of them went pale and catatonic after that, as if the game had stolen their souls. Another former employee named Marky Harrison recounted that the game had shown up in another arcade under a different name. Now I'm going to tell you about when I almost broke the rules. No, this did not involve No Heart, No Soul. The arcade had just opened for business, with Galaga, Mrs. Pac-Man, a vehicle arcade, a Batman, a dance machine, you name it. I was cleaning up before work when I noticed a new arcade game had been plugged in. It was Donkey Kong EXE. I at first shrugged it off, thinking it was a bootleg Donkey Kong arcade. But the rules, I snapped out of it and realized the rules applied here. I remembered Rule 1 and remembered thinking it was ridiculous. I went and let the arcade open, ready for patrons to play. But the kids immediately noticed the new Donkey Kong game, and they all gathered around it out of sheer interest, almost as if they had become zealots of a deity of sorts. Mr. Crab, one of the kids asked, "Can I play this?" They were pointing at the Donkey Kong EXE. I was about to let her play it when the manager showed up out of nowhere. He came to me so fast I swear he didn't even touch the ground. "Rule 1, Danforth." But I can't disappoint these kids," I said, as if I'd allowed this monster to do its thing. "Whatever you do, do not, under any circumstances, let anyone play this game. That includes you. It has not succeeded in finding another victim in 6 months, and I will not let it happen again." Later, after the arcade closed, the game was unplugged, hauled off, and taken away. No child played that game that day. Rule 2. If no person comes out of the laser tag arena for 30 minutes after they enter, notify the management immediately. After my run-in with the manager after nearly letting the girl play the game, how could I not follow the rules? This happened about a month after the Donkey Kong EXE incident. As a general rule, we have to observe the time of the next group of people to play laser tag. We also have employees keeping watch on the laser tag in case Rule 2. Normally a period of laser tag lasts 20 minutes, so we're usually good at that. I had the shift that day. I watched the people go in, so I wrote down the time they went in. I know, we get bored with all these kinds of things, but how can we not get bored when we just have to watch the entrance of a laser tag arena? The time was 2:37 p.m. when the group went in. I watched the entrance, glancing at my watch to make sure the laser tag game lasted 20 minutes and no longer. My coworker Miles ghosted up to me, as she always did. "Danforth, how you doing?" "Miles, don't you dare sneak up on me like that. I need to make sure this laser tag game goes smoothly." "Oh, that's what you have to do today." "Okay." She went back to her janitorial duties, and by then I glanced at my watch. 3:05. I dashed straight for the manager's office, after having noticed that nobody had come out of the laser tag arena. After my run-in with rule number 1, how could I not? I burst through the door, and I said in a volume that was almost like shouting, "Rule 2, time was 2:37 p.m., 12 people inside." The manager got out of his chair so fast that I thought he was about to run for his life. "Ah, crap! Move aside! I knew this was going to happen again. I knew it! He grabbed a screwdriver and a wrench from his desk drawer and rushed towards the laser tag arena. He opened the circuit breaker inside and did some things that would require the skill of a mechanic. About 5 minutes later, I saw the people I had seen enter come out the exit. All 12, no worse the wear. Later that day, I asked the manager about what happened, which prompted him to make this rule. It turned out that some residents of the small town had gone missing after something had happened in the laser tag arena. He showed me the missing posters, even showed me some of the paperwork with notes from previous employees, about the time they had gone in, and how 30 minutes had passed with no one coming out. I realized that what he had done was a type of procedure that stopped the monster within the laser tag game. He discovered it in some kind of manual. I realized from his reaction to my notifying him of rule number 2 that the rules weren't out of silliness. They were there to protect us. Rule number 3, if a blonde woman in a red dress asks for a prize, under no circumstances should you give any of them to her. This happened to me for the first time about a month into my job. I was given the shift of the prize counter that day. Note to you guys, we change jobs weekly to make sure everyone doesn't get burned out, and, to protect us from the weirdness that goes on around here. Like I said, I was working the prize counter. There were some interesting things, like the toy balls and the Nerf guns that you couldn't find anywhere else, but they were mostly all plush animals. Luckily, the woman in the red dress can take no for an answer, making her one of the least dangerous things on the job in the arcade. I got about 7 tickets from this kid, and he asked me for that unicorn. I gave him the one he wanted, but in the line was the blonde woman in the red dress, just behind the kid who wanted the unicorn. She looked like her hair was really bleached white. Her dress was like a red-colored version of a Monica Black dress in the TV show. Her figure was awfully attractive and a little creepy. She came up to me and asked, "May I have one of those plastic pirate swords?" She offered me the 5 tickets that it would take to get it, and I offered it to her, but the thing I found out about the ticket was that there were no numbers on them like there normally would be. So I said no, and she just smiled and walked out of the arcade. I went to the manager to find out more about this rule. "Hey, can I talk to you for a second? Danforth, you gonna tell me you broke a rule?" "No, I need to know more about rule number 3. With that, he gave me a stack of papers. When the arcade closed that night, I read through most of them, the headlines jumping off the page at me. Family murdered in their home, an article from a 1985 paper. The article talked about an employee of the arcade offering a woman in a red dress a prize the night before they were killed. That night, he and his whole family had been murdered. Engaged couple killed. That had been an article from 1987. The wife was working at the arcade when she offered a prize to a woman in a red dress, right before the night they were murdered. I could see some handwriting, but it was hard to read. "It's the same lady," someone had scrawled in the margins. Several other articles read about someone offering a prize to a blonde lady in a red dress, right before their death or the deaths of their families. When I got to the last page, it was just more handwriting. I better make a rule to avoid this in the future. Rule 4. If there is ever a power outage in the after hours, hold still. If an arcade turns on by itself during the said outage, go straight to it and play the game until the power comes back on. Make sure that when you play the game under that circumstance, to make no mistakes whatsoever. Normally, we're not supposed to play games on the job, but if the circumstance for this rule happens, that is where you can get an exception. Since we switch jobs weekly, I sometimes have janitorial duties after hours. 2 weeks into the job, I had janitor duty in the after hours, and the power went out. That includes the obligatory emergency lights that are supposed to stay on regardless. I stood completely still, thinking the power outage would be temporary, but an arcade cabinet came on, turned on by itself with a startup screen, and the number of credits needed to play already in it. It was that game with the hamster wheel, the one that kids love so much. You have to roll the ball through the course without fail, and at the end you get some tickets. Remembering the rule, I walked right up to it and started playing. It didn't play like it usually did, and it was as if the difficulty had been turned way up. It was hard not to let the wheel fall off. I kept on playing, just trying to keep him from falling off the track. I sat there playing that game for 4 hours until the power came back on, and when it did, I went straight to management. "I saw you playing that game. Rule 4, Rule 9, or were you just slacking off?" "Rule 4, boss." "Good. Keep in mind, Danforth, if Rule 4 should happen again, making any mistake will do to you what happened to Gabrielle and Natalie." I remembered those 2 girls laying pale and catatonic in front of that machine, and made a mental note never to fail at a game if it happened again. Rule number 5. If all the arcade screens show the exact same message, notify the management immediately. I had janitorial duty, but sometimes I work the prize counter, and sometimes I also work the laser tag to make sure that it works properly. I had janitorial duties that night, but sometimes I had to work the prize counter, and sometimes I also had to watch over the laser tag to make sure that rule number 2 never went down. I'd been working for 3 months when the arcade games suddenly blinked on after hours, and all the games had the same screen. They all showed the exact same image, the image that was a mixture of biker chick and Disney princess of some form. I remember cleaning up the last of the mess I was on super quick and going straight to the manager. Rule 5. Okay, Danforth, stay here. I'll take care of it. He rushed straight to the arcade game with the biggest screen, which was in the corner. He stood straight-faced in front of the screen and asked whatever the girl was on the screen, "All right, what do you want this time?" The image on all the screens turned to look at him, and they spoke like multiple girls talking to him at once. "You know what I want. Cut the crap, lady. Tell me what you want. You made the rules against it, remember? You know the games are hungry. Not after those 2 girls. Never again. Rules are meant to be broken, Lester. You know what I want. Like I'd ever believe anything you say again. You think you can just make rules against the creature I am? When I need more what? You know what I want. No way I'm letting you kill more kids. Don't you remember? I want someone to play no heart, no soul. The hell with that. Please. When won't you let this cute little man play it, too? No chance. You'll pay for this. Rule number 1's there for a reason." There was silence for a moment. Then she said, "You've given me what I want. All I really wanted was for you to remember the fear you had when I took those souls." "You bitch," the manager said. Then the arcade screens turned off. No other incident happened that day. I remember being pretty scared. Seems as if the arcades are possessed by some strange monsters. It felt as if we were dealing with some sort of demon. All I could do was watch helplessly, really having no way to deal with any of this. Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining me for tonight's story. Well, this has been part 1 of I Work at an Arcade in a Smallish Town, and There Are Some Strange Rules by the NineTailedTanuki. I hope you're looking forward to part 2 as much as I am, because it'll be up next Monday. If you liked the story, I definitely recommend you go check out the writer's other works. I've left a link to their profile down below, so go give them a look. I think you'll like what you find. If you enjoyed tonight's video, why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss any of the great stories that we put on here. Maybe even leave a comment. I do like it when people interact. I'm pleased to announce some changes to Patreon, so let's go ahead and read out our patrons. Thanks to Janet and the Irish Devil, who recently joined our Spooky Skeleton tier. Thanks to Xaronana, Emily Coltsfoot, and Leslie Lou Riddle, who are our Ghost Reader tier contributors. And thanks to Glen Jenkins for being our Ghost Rider tier contributor. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. If you'd like to support the show, come on down to Patreon. For just $5 a month, you can have your spooky on a Tuesday or a Thursday. And of course, have your name read out at the end of every TikTok and every YouTube video that I do. Patrons at my Ghostly Reader tier also get a book every time I write one, so why not get your own signed copy on your doorstep? I've got a book coming out in late November, Fall Frights and Winter Chills, and I know you won't want to miss that, so come on ahead down and make your pledge so you can get your signed copy when I print them. Hopefully, just in time for Christmas. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.